right. Hopefully I'm live right now and I'm live right now and everything is coming through okay and you're actually able to see the presentation that I'm presenting to you today. Just again, today is information regarding our referendum that will be on the April 5th ballot. Our board passed resolutions that I'm going to inform you about today, and I will provide detailed information for about a half hour regarding what that referendum means and why the time is now and the purpose for those funds that our community is considering. So, as we move forward here, the first thing I would like to mention is that our board did pass two resolutions at the board meeting on Monday, January 17th. The first one was to renew the operational referendum for $950,000 annually for 4 years. The second, they authorized a $10,995,000 bond for facility improvement projects. Basically, the bond is a 20-year debt service that we're looking at. So there was a large decision-making process that was a part of the board's consideration before they passed those two resolutions. They really worked hard during several board retreats and put in a lot of time considering the vision of the district, the community survey information, and then of course the opportunity they have that was very intentionally created for them a couple years ago. So the first thing I'd like to say is that our vision has become more and more clear. Our board has become more and more aligned to the work that we have around that vision. And our community engaged with us for 2 years around what we now call our graduate profile. And so there were also at the time three other teams that were meeting on teaching and learning, culture and climate, and school finance. And the idea of those teams was to think about how to create efficiencies in our district and where it is we needed to head as a district in terms of teaching and learning and culture and climate. So at the end of that phase one, we actually developed priority statements and developed what became our profile of a NCETA graduate. That graduate profile consists of our community input about what it is they really want to see from our graduates as they leave the doors of our school. And then the second part of that phase was developing a vision, kind of how are we going to get there? How are we going to create a pathway to figure out where it is we needed to go as a district to meet the requests or demands of our community in terms of that profile. And what we came down to was really nurturing a powerful learner. Really, it was instructional strategies that really got us to the place of meeting the needs of individual children. It became very important as part of that powerful learner vision that it was all about individual children. It was no longer okay to teach to the middle and hope people got it, or if they didn't get it, so be it. It was really important for us to think about strategies we use in our classrooms to really meet the needs of every child. So that became what we now have as our value statements and our vision and our mission about preparing every child for a changing world and really thinking transformatively about how to go about doing that, because we knew we needed to do things really differently in order to meet the needs of every single child. And then, of course, our vision is consistently all about leadership and learning and making sure that we don't put any limitations in front of us that limit what we're able to do with kids and how we're able to get towards that vision. So our board considered all of these things when they think about what is it we really need to prioritize to make sure we're meeting the needs of individual kids. How do we increase student engagement? We really knew that when we looked at our data regarding teaching and learning, we knew that one of our gaps was absolutely we needed to engage kids at deeper levels. And so we talked about getting to more hands-on, to more project-based learning, to more experiential learning, and really focused on that area. The other thing that we wanted to be really a strong part of was building skills beyond the Common Core. And that really got to be that graduate profile of which we're building citizenship, life skills, and communication skills in addition to the academic standards. We also knew that it was important for us to start monitoring whether we were doing that well. And in addition to what is the typical one-time, one-day snapshot of how kids perform on the state report card, we knew that we wanted to measure those graduate profile skills in different ways, and we developed our own internal district dashboard. So those things are all posted on our website if you're interested. The second thing the board had to really look deeply at, they learned about the first results in December and poured over some of those results for several board retreats after that. But they really looked at, in summary, there was a community support for the renewal of the operational referendum. The cost-cutting options that were provided to people were not supported by a large majority of stakeholders. The only options people had as their top places to cut would be athletics or extracurriculars, which is a very tiny portion of our budget. So when we're looking at cost-cutting options, a majority of stakeholders were not interested in those in any of the options that we listed in terms of where we would find funding. What our community said they were interested in, however, was the expansion of our tech ed classrooms. That had the most support. The least support went to our child care center, so that became off the list at this point. And then there was a tolerance from about 6 to 11 million in terms of what people felt they could support. So we began our journey then of renewing the operational referendum. We knew there was community support shown in that survey, and we also know that we live in a community that really supports our children and felt that that is the way that we need to move forward. And so I'm going to share a little bit of the dilemma of what got us to that point, some of our local needs, and then of course the tax impact of that operational referendum that our community will consider on April 5th. The first thing I want to stress is that there are funding restraints for all schools. Every school has a limited amount of per pupil revenue that they can bring in. It's called the revenue limit. And so that revenue limit amount is determined proportionally from equalized aid from the state, as well as local property taxes. And so when we're thinking about those funding restraints, there's another piece of that puzzle, which I'll show in a little bit, but you can see where I've circled NCEDA, and that we are some of the lower per pupil revenue limit districts, and we're in the red there on that yellow circle. And so we have done I think a great return on the investment of our taxpayers, knowing how much we're spending per student and where we're trying to head as a district regarding the vision we're trying to meet. The one thing I would also say about this is the biennium budget for 21-23 did not provide any new revenue for districts. However, money did go in to the equalization aid portion of that revenue limit. So although the revenue limit didn't increase for NCEDA in terms of how that calculation works, it did provide a lower mill rate, because what the state legislature decided to do through that budget was to shift funds, more funds, into the equalization aid, which made that proportion of the revenue limit higher, which reduced the property tax amounts at the local level. The unfortunate part about that is it's great. Of course, the fortunate part is it's great for our taxpayers and anyone all over the state that our property taxes had a little bit of burden lifted because of that decision. However, it's sort of an artificial deflation. It is part of a biennium budget, and that money will probably be shifted in the future. And then what you're forced with is having to deal with mill rates that are very volatile. When our community said in 2018 they wanted a stable mill rate. So what happens in school districts, because we have revenue caps, schools are forced to have to think about how to support their school needs through referenda. I call it the Wisconsin way. I think it's been very intentional in Wisconsin that people are voting to decide the quality of education in their local community based on what goes on any given ballot. And I think that is how Wisconsin has chosen to fund schools. Unfortunately, that particular approach is hard on communities, in my opinion. I think that it's hard for people to say, yes, please raise my taxes, and vote yes. I think that's hard on communities to have to make that decision. However, it is clear to me, given the amount of referenda that has been passed or that has been presented around the state for many years, and more the last few years than ever before. So you can see that 7 out of 10 Wisconsin schools districts have gone to referendum. I would also say that the frequency of which districts must exceed those revenue caps. Actually, that it prevents an actual, or it shows an actual gap between school revenue, and then what further creates a gap is the inflation that's going on. And so, if in fact in 2009-10 inflation rose 17% to 2018-19, the state average revenue per student increase only went up by 6%. So you can see the difference in that percentage and why school districts across the state have challenges because of that. If a district has declining enrollment, it only makes that situation worse. So the one thing I just wanted to add to this slide, because it will be brought up, as a declining district enrollment, it really is, it comes up all the time about if you're declining students, then shouldn't it be natural that there's a natural reduction? And that's not always the case. It actually rarely is the case, because our biggest expense is staffing. And so when you look at a budget that has, 80% of our budget is staffing, if we have a 20 student decrease that is across the pre-K 4-year-old to 12th grade school system, it doesn't reduce any one grade level by enough that it allows us to reduce a teacher. So if we reduced 3 kids at first grade and we had 2 sections of 18 kids and you reduce it by 3, you're not going to reduce it enough that you can create 1 section, for example. So I believe, in my own words, that school referendums have become the way that Wisconsin has chosen to fund their schools, both from an operational standpoint as well as facility upgrades and improvements. This is just some data out from our state regarding the 421 school districts. You will see that since 2000, there were 1,169 referendums that issued debt. There were 768 non-reoccurring, and there were 423 recurring. If you add up all of those referendums that have taken place in that 11 years, you will see that is a significant amount of referendum that have been presented in the state of Wisconsin. And again, I think it just reflects that is the way our state has chosen to do business, to fund our public schools. The challenges that we had regarding funding, I just would like to thank our community for their support in 2018. We were able to do the following. We had purchased some new buses. That was a very deliberate part of that, those operational funds, which we still need to continue to look at some of those things. We made some small facility improvements without taking on debt. Our recent one was maybe some of the light fixtures and things we had to do out front, as well as doing some just resurfacing out there and things that we did a couple years ago. We also were able to create a virtual academy, which allowed us to provide opportunities for kids, because when we failed the referendum in 2017, we actually cut classes in order to operationalize school that next year. And really that operational referendum helped us avoid cutting programs and services for students. And then, of course, which is important to our community, maintaining small class sizes. So these are the mill rates from all the way back from 2014, and these are actuals. These are certified mill rates from these years. So as you look down the list here, you will see that by 2022, which is the fiscal year we're in right now, it's the lowest that we've had, and this is our 4th year of our operational referendum. The thing I wanted to show you is how important it was for our board to make sure we were doing everything we could to make that tax impact the best, most efficient possible for our taxpayers. When we passed our referendum in 2018, we projected a mill rate of $9.84, and we actually had a realized impact of $9.21. Then you'll see for 2020, we had projected $10.19. We came in at $8.40, and then again in year 3, we predicted $10.49 and came in at $8.56. Our goal all along from here on out is always, we don't ever want to go above the 2021 mill rate of $8.56. That is important to us. We know that the $7.77 for 2022, it was artificially deflated because of the biennium budget I mentioned to you a little while back. So we know that that is probably not realistic, as well as being not realistic in any school community right now, because that's only through the biennium budget through this next fiscal year. I would also just share that the mill rate over the last 8 years dropped 30%. The board used whatever money we could to keep that mill rate lower than we projected. And then we under levied, which means the revenue limit calculation was authorizing us to be able to spend $150,000 more than we ended up spending for 2 of the 4 years of the referenda, the operational referenda that our community approved in 2018. So we actually did not spend that money when it was available to us. We also tried hard every year to find cost savings to add to our fund balance, because we're trying not to have to short-term borrow so much that's a cost to everybody when we have to do that. We refinanced savings from our last project. Our last project we did, we actually saved $1 million, and we put that $1 million towards prepayment, which is part of what allowed us the opportunity for this particular project. And then we redesigned post-retirement benefits, which was almost $1 million savings to our district. That was done in collaboration with staff and our board. They worked really hard on that all last 2 years ago. So the mill rate projections, if we renew our operational referendum for 2022, are outlined here. Of course, please remember these are only projections, and they're only projected out in calculations if nothing changes with the biennium budget. We can never predict what the biennium budget will actually do, but if nothing changes, these are the predictions that we would have. The cost per $100,000 home would be $1 per month to get to that first year of 22-23. That is the cost of that commitment. And then after that, we actually have savings every single year. It actually goes down from that initial cost. And so you can see that although there's that $1 per month for the first year, or $12 per year, after that we increase, we're gaining money per month or per year for the next consecutive years. And again, our commitment is to not go over that 856 at any point, which was our 2021, our most stable, review of that mill rate. The capital improvement referendum, there is also a question on the ballot. So I want to go through a little bit about different things regarding local needs and why now, why the opportunity right now, and then of course the projections of tax impact. First of all, there are some changing needs of our district regarding students. We have over 20% of our population, about 150 students, have what are called individualized educational plans and have been identified as students with special needs. That particular population compares to the state average at 14%. So you can see that we are significantly higher than most districts. As a matter of fact, every year we look at transferring $1 million of our general fund to support the unfunded portion of special education aid. And so when you look to the graph on the right, you will see that I circled Necedah, and we are actually closer to the 2000, and I'm sorry, my circle is a little off. It should be a little bit more to the right there. It should be, we're closer to $2,000 of funds out of our per pupil money out of non-disabled students get shifted towards paying for special education services. That is a federal law in terms of the needs of our children and what we need to do. But the reason for this graphic is just to show you how underfunded we are in the area of special education. So when you look at free and reduced, our district is, at this point, we don't know yet, we don't have certification, but we're over that 55%. But certainly at the elementary level, we have classes with literally 100% of that class on free and reduced lunch. Student needs. Of course, I've talked a little bit about our vision, but we're really about building real-world skills around that graduate profile, such as citizenship, life skills, and communication skills. We also believe that experience we want experiences at increased levels of hands-on and project-based learning. That is part of our vision. We do not believe students should be just passive participants, but they should be active in their learning, and our teachers have been doing a lot of things regarding moving in that direction. We also believe that small class sizes are absolutely essential, as our community also believes, because we want a more individualized, personalized approach to learning for every single child. Of course, we're not perfect, but that is always what we're striving for when we decide what we're going to do in our classrooms for teaching, instructional approaches, as well as curricular materials. We also know that the social and emotional systems are really, really critical. Our counselors are some of our structures in our system, because all of those things help kids feel connected to our school and feel like the learning journey is more personalized to them. So by engaging every child, we're able to focus on skills needed for life and ensure a well-rounded student. And that through doing all of those things, we are confident and certain our kids will continue to increase their performance on academic standards. The other thing is about the capital improvement. When our board looked at the survey, they really took what our community was comfortable with, and these are a couple of the areas that are in that facility improvement project plan. Of course, those details are not all ironed out in terms of all the specificity around these things. We won't know that unless our community says, yes, it's okay to move forward. But if we do, there are certain reasons for that. The need is, we know that our technical education expansion can actually increase the opportunities available to our kids. We know that kids are more deeply engaged when they're learning math and science and even communication skills, doing hands-on type things, and that area is an area in our school building that is consistently doing hands-on learning. We also know that learning in that classroom really takes on critical thinking and problem solving, and really builds some of those real world skills that are important to our community as identified through that graduate profile. We also know that that particular area allows our kids to really do more personalization and individualization. And we know that that provides a pathway to areas in manufacturing, engineering, trades, and other areas that require some of those higher level skills. An indirect benefit for our community is that we really look forward to a partnership with a technical college. We think we can offer night classes for our community or some other opportunities to explore that area. We know that we want to work towards college credit earned with technical college partnerships. And then, of course, we want to continue to increase and partner with our both local as well as regional businesses through that study program, whether it's apprenticeships or work study programs. certainly all of us know the limitations in the area of trades and engineering and manufacturing, and we think that this class and this expansion is a pipeline to some of those really good paying jobs that our kids can have access to. The other thing we want to look at is expansion of elementary classrooms. When this building was built in 1998, we did not have the same programming we have now. We did not have all of the support services that students need, and we did not have 4-year-old kindergarten the way it looks now, as well as early childhood programming the way it looks now. And so we've added, just since I've been here, 3 additional classrooms down there when we expanded our 4-year-old kindergarten program, and our early childhood program is continuing to grow to service our 3 and 4-year-olds of special needs kids. And so we really want to make sure that we are doing as our community really wants of us, and that is to keep those class sizes low. We know by doing that we can more personalize and individualize learning for our children. So there are, in terms of the decision making, we're really focused on student focused priorities, and those classrooms show that. We also have things, of course, with that project plan that improve building systems, just updated systems, controls, and things that we have to continue to update to get service. We are a very large system, and there are things we have to keep up with that we can't do through a general budget in ways that create efficiencies for the functioning of our building. We're going to look at some safety and security things. None of that is finalized, but we know there are some things we can do by creating a more secure entrance, especially at our elementary side, and do some things with doors and making sure, we know we need to replace some of our doors, our outside doors, especially if you visit our school. It's one of the things that you may be frustrated with, as we all are. We need to make some of those improvements. We also know that there are areas in our building we have to upgrade and upkeep. Our fixtures and furnishings are falling apart, and we need to really be intentional about replacing those things. We have a lot of deferred maintenance. Our building's 25 years old, and there are just things that we have to continue to upgrade, and it's very difficult to do that without having our community support. So why now? A lot of people will ask, why now is the district considering this? There are 3 main reasons. One is our student needs, and I've shared a lot about that, but really we want to individualize, personalize, and meet our students where they're at with opportunities to prepare them for life. But we also have low interest rates right now. I don't think we'll ever have these rates again for a very long time, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of many. And so we want to take advantage of that. And then also, our board was very intentional a couple years ago. We saved money on their first project, which they probably will plan to do again if we're able, and they prepaid debt on that particular project. By prepaying that debt, it allowed for a little bit of a cliff, which allows us now to do additional improvements without there being this significant cost to our taxpayers. That is the reason the opportunity is right now, because that cliff is happening this next year. So here are the mill rate projections in terms of whether, if in fact our community says yes, we want to support the renewal of the operational as well as the project that you're considering. These are the potential impacts, or what we project to be impacts for individual taxpayers. For that total project, as well as the recurring, non-recurring referendum, it would be $6.70 per month for a $100,000 home. That is that first year. Remember, we have right now really artificially deflated mill rates, so part of it is that popping back up again. But then you can see very quickly it starts to really decline over the next several years. So although this says per month, those are actually savings per month, not an additional cost. So the only cost to our taxpayers, theoretically, if everything stays the same for the next biennium budget, are actually savings after that first year, not additional cost. And that is, again, the commitment of the board to make sure we're keeping that mill rate under that $8.56 the year before we got this artificial deflation. So what are the next steps as we wrap it up here? We are going to provide more details regarding the facility project and very specific things we're improving based on the facility assessment that was conducted in 2019-20. There are many areas of alarm or urgency that we need to take care of more immediately. And those are part of that project, and we'll share those things. We're also going to provide more details regarding the scheduling of information sessions. This is just the first crack at sharing information with you. And by doing this, I hope our community engages with us so I know how to better communicate. If there's things that I need to do a better job with regarding that communication, that would be great to know. But there will be opportunity to meet with board members, myself, as well as our facility assessment team. We will be mailing information the next couple of weeks to every Necedah School District resident, providing facts of this particular referenda, and the voting that we are preparing for is taking place on April 5th, 2022. So that is the information I have today for you. Again, I will be posting this information on our website, and with this PowerPoint, I will post that on there and everybody can access it. I will also be posting this video and everybody that will be able to access that as well for information. I'll try to do some time spots so you know what's coming up in terms of if you want to jump around to different parts and listen to certain things. So hopefully that's helpful to you as we move forward, and I'm always here for questions. It's really important for me to answer any questions you have or concerns you have. I know it's a difficult decision for our board, but we also know that by moving forward, we're taking advantages of the opportunities we have right now, as well as really trying to work towards that vision of meeting the needs of our children. So thank you for joining me today, and I will see you next week here on Facebook Live. Have a good weekend, everybody.